Hi, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. I cannot wait to dive into the content that we have for you today. We have a really good event planned, and I cannot wait to get started. So, welcome to the call. We're going to have folks trickling in over the next few minutes. For those of you who have already joined, we'll go ahead and get started shortly. Like I said, I wanted to give folks a couple minutes to get on the call. I know how it can be jumping from one call to another. Um, as we wait, I do want to go ahead and sort of draw your attention to the GoToWebinar question box. That is what is going to be sort of like your chat feature for the day. So this is where you're going to be able to put in your questions. You won't be able to necessarily chat back and forth with anybody, but that's where I will see your questions, and then we'll get to a live Q&A towards the end of the event. So to get us all started, I want to ask you a quick question. Find that question box and let me know where you're calling in from today. That's one of my favorite things about these webinars. I love hearing where people are located and just knowing that, this is an event. We're all here for the same reason, and it's connecting all of us no matter where we are or what we're doing, but we're all just here for one goal, and that's to improve our marketing. So I will call out some of the responses as they come in, but I just want to see where everyone's coming in from today. So for example, I'm calling in from Louisiana. I'm based out of North Louisiana, born and raised. So let me see where we've got folks calling in from today. I see Oregon, Wisconsin, St. Louis, Maryland. Oh man, I know you guys are getting some weather. PA, West Virginia, Arkansas. Hey, that's a neighbor. Philadelphia, Florida, Rhode Island. Oh my goodness. Vancouver. We've got someone from Canada. Toronto. Awesome. California, Minnesota. That is wonderful. And I hope everybody who is up in the Northeast is surviving and that everybody has heat or a fire that they can get next to. So let's all get cozy wherever we are. We've got so many people who are coming in, and as you can tell, they're from everywhere. So you're in good company. And I love that we're all here to just show up for our marketing. All right, so I'm going to kick off today with just a couple of housekeeping items. First off, everyone on this call, just note that this is being recorded. We get that question a lot. Today's session will be recorded, so you don't have to worry about taking notes. You'll get all the materials in your inbox soon after this, and that includes a copy of the slides as well as the recording. And so just note that all of the recordings can also easily be found on WordStream and Local IQ YouTube channels following today's event. So what you'll do, just navigate to YouTube, type in Local IQ or WordStream, and then click on one of our channels, and you'll be able to see this webinar, but then also all of our past recordings. So if you want to catch up on anything, that's where you can find all the information later on. And then also, the reason that I have you guys practice using that question box, one, I want to know where you're calling in from, but I also want you to feel comfortable typing in there, because throughout the webinar, as you have a question, throw it into that question box, and that's where we're going to go for our Q&A. So be sure to stick around for later in the session. If you've attended any of our past webinars, then you know that the Q&A session can be a really cool experience. So be sure to save those questions, and then we'll get to that at the end. And then before we go any further, I always like to get everyone on the same page of who we are, who is Local IQ. So some of you may be joining us today and you are already working with us, and that's wonderful. We are very happy to have you here. And then we have some of you that are maybe totally new, or maybe you know us through one of our local publications, and then we're just happy to have you guys here too. So then there's another group that maybe you know us through our thought leadership brand, WordStream by Local IQ. So how does all that fit together? Well, we are all Local IQ. This is how we are able to get businesses like yours and help them attract and retain new customers. And so we do that in a variety of different ways. We have a marketing platform that's fueled by millions of campaigns. We have personalized local experts who advise, and then we have a ton of tools and technology that help give you a good marketing strategy and for the ultimate goal to grow your business. So no matter which way you came in today, we're just glad you're here and we're going to have some great information to share with you. One thing that I always love to share with our guests about Local IQ is that we are really proud to be one of the premier partners for all major advertising platforms. And we are a newly minted one of only 6 TikTok marketing partners. And this is not something that is just granted to any marketing platform out there. It's really only given to businesses that display clear campaign success for their customers, thought leadership within the field, and then able to meet a rigorous set of requirements for each platform. So that's a little bit about us. Now, let me tell you a little bit about me. So I am going to be your host and facilitator today. My name is Katie. And here at Local IQ, I work closely with all of our teams on digital marketing in all of its various forms. For the last 17 or so years, I've worked in one capacity or another in digital marketing. I equip sales teams, I work with agencies and individual business owners, just getting whatever they need to succeed. And then if you couldn't tell by my accent, if you joined a little late too, I am located in the southern US. I'm in Louisiana. So we had our snow and ice a few weeks ago. I'm happy that that's behind us. And I can see flowers blooming where I am and the sun is out. So for all of you that are buried under snow, hope is on the way. Spring is coming. And then one last piece of housekeeping. One question that I get a ton here is where can we learn more about the topics that we're going to cover today? So I'll be honest, this hour will fly by. There's going to be a ton of information. And even though it's being recorded, maybe you feel like you need to sit with it a little bit longer, or maybe you want to do a deep dive into a particular thing that we covered today. I highly recommend that you navigate to Local IQ and WordStream websites. We cover everything in these webinars in depth on those 2 blogs, as well as on social media. So be sure to follow us there. We share out notifications for future events. So if you want to join more webinars like this in the future, definitely be sure to follow us and turn on your post notifications. And then we also share out platform updates, interesting articles, and so on that advertisers like you should really be aware of. So you can find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, X, and YouTube. All right, so if you've attended any of our webinars in the past, I'd love to keep listeners on their toes. So to warm us up, go to that handy dandy question box that we practiced in earlier, and I'm going to hit you with a quick pop quiz. I want you to type into the question box and let me know, where do you think most people start their searches for products or services? Is it Old Faithful? Are you going to Google? Or are you maybe going to TikTok or YouTube? Or are you super cool and you go straight to ChatGPT or some other AI, and that's your new search engine? So let me know where you are. I love to get a feel for where everyone is, and I love getting a feel for people's personalities too. I think you can tell a lot from that. So I'll call out some of the responses. I think that we'll see that it's a lot of fun because it represents all of our different businesses and our functions and, again, our personalities. So let's see. I see Google. Google by far is the winner. I've got a string of Chat GPT folks. Then I see Google and Chat GPT. A lot of that combo. Google, Google, Google. Yellow page book. I do love a good joke. I see Google search, Google Gemini or Chat GPT, all of the above. I get that. Depending on what you're searching, they are good tools. It doesn't matter which order or what you do. I appreciate going old school to Deanna, working on Google. I love it. Uh, More Google, more Chat GPT. Okay, this is awesome. So we are all on the same page. We are all going to basically the same places. And so, but if you didn't notice, they did differ. The answers differed based on the situation, on the person. And so there's a lot of different reasons that you could go to these different places and your search behavior differs. And that's because each one of them is unique. Each of your situations is unique. So I think that what that means is that as we go through the topic today, I want you to be thinking about how it could apply to your specific business and your specific situation. Because at the end of the day, everyone's going to have a different experience. All right. So quick overview, we're going to talk about how AI evaluates sites. Then we're going to go through site health. We're going to talk about the content that AI can understand. We're going to talk about visibility and then what to actually do with all of that information. I'm a super practical person, so I love application. So let's get started. Before we go into any of the actions, like I said, I love to go ahead and just take action. Let's talk a little bit first about how AI determines whether a site is worthy enough to surface it up in answers. Modern SEO is now more about this level of eligibility. You'll hear this a lot rather than rank. So let's dig in. Let's talk about it. Think of traditional SEO as ranking in search results. Now, think about AI eligibility. This is more about being chosen by AI to explain something on your behalf. So it's not so much ranking as it is AI seeing that you are a qualified source of information. And so, in order to do this, AI systems need to quickly assess the quality, the clarity, and even the intent before they surface the content. So if you have a page on your site and it fails some of those early checks, it's likely that it'll be excluded entirely. It's not necessarily that it'll rank lower. So the first big hurdle of any site is going to be crawlability, which seems like a made up word, but it's definitely a real word these days. AI systems cannot use what they can't access. So if a page isn't crawlable or indexable, it effectively doesn't exist from an AI perspective. So first, pages must be indexable. So this word means that AI is allowed to remember your site and that it can use the page. So this looks like no accidental, no index tags, blocked resources, hidden content. If AI can crawl it, it at least has a chance to be included. But errors, however, are a hard stop. If a page returns a 404 or maybe it consistently fails to load, AI systems are not going to surface it. No matter how good the content is or how good it used to be, it's not going to be able to pull it forward. And then again, another hard stop, redirects. These matter a lot more than what people think. A long redirect chain, a loop, or even outdated URLs, this can break the path that AI uses to really understand your site. And so even if a human can efficiently get there, AI often will not follow that trail. So just keep that in mind. And I'm sorry, we are all dealing with colds over here. So bear with me. All right, this slide is meant to show that technical SEO issues rarely happen in isolation. They stack and stack and stack, and then they just become a much bigger problem. So what you see above the surface, things that are obvious like a broken link or a 404 error, those are usually just symptoms. That's the tip of the iceberg. So below the surface is where all of the real damage can happen. That's when links break or redirects aren't clean. AI and search engines are going to get super confused about how your site is structured. And then they're not going to be able to crawl that effectively. And so a confused crawl path means that AI is wasting time, basically, trying to figure out where to go. And it'll just give up entirely at some point. So when that happens, that's when your signals get diluted. So AI doesn't see you as a reliable source anymore. So authority, relevance, freshness, these don't flow cleanly through the site and AI won't be able to surface you. So what you end up with is instead of one small issue, you end up with this chain reaction. Fewer pages crawled, fewer pages trusted, and ultimately fewer pages that are eligible to be surfaced. So the big takeaway here that I want you to sort of like start wrapping your head around is that what we're going to call technical debt compounds really quickly. So the issues, the longer tail issues that sit unresolved, the harder it becomes for AI to confidently understand and use your content. But so once we clean up the technical friction, though, what's the next question? So you know that these things are happening, you get it addressed. How easily can AI and users really understand how your site is organized. Site structure tends to be a very strong understanding of a signal to AI. So the fewer steps that it takes to reach the important content, the clearer your site's priorities become. So on the positive side, when key pages are just 2 to 3 clicks from the homepage, AI can very quickly understand what's happening and how all the pages relate to each other. A clear category hierarchy and logical internal linking. Those are going to be really, really helpful to AI to see which pages are core, which are supporting, and then how all of those topics connect. Again, the name of the game is just making it easy for AI to crawl that site. But then on the other hand, when important pages are 6 or more clicks deep, they're buried in navigation, or they're sort of linked randomly throughout the site, that's when it gets a little murky for AI. It'll give up basically. The structure feels messy or inefficient, and it assumes that the content is lower priority because it can't find it, or it just assumes that it's not as trustworthy. So both of those places are not where you want to be. And so this is why simpler, flatter site structures, like what you see on the right, tend to perform better in AI-driven search. They make it really obvious what the site is about, where the value lives. And so I think for this slide, the takeaway here is that fewer clicks aren't just better for users, they make it better for AI too, to be able to understand and prioritize and to, again, surface that content. And then once your structure is clear, the next step is really making sure that each page has a clear purpose. And so we talked about having the structure and making it be clean and straightforward. And that's because AI understands pages best when each one has a single focused job. So on the left, you'll see you have a page that is clearly one topic. That's easy for AI to interpret and trust. But then if you look at the right, there is a single page that's trying to cover multiple things all on the same real estate. This is when the signals get diluted. AI isn't sure what the page should rank for or to reference. So to keep it simple, keep it to one page, one primary topic. And then once each page has a clear purpose, then you start asking yourself, what's the value that each of these pages is delivering? AI, unfortunately, does not reward pages just for existing. There's no participation trophies in AI. It just rewards pages that it deems are genuinely useful. So you're constantly trying to make your site and these pages appear useful. And so the chart on the screen shows that thin content, something that we're going to explain a little bit later, but it's basically complex topics that there just aren't enough words on it, that this could necessarily maybe increase page count. You can add on additional pages for the site to crawl, but it also is going to drive low engagement and weak signals. However, if you have content with some substance that answers questions quickly and completely, that's where AI is going to prioritize it. So the goal isn't necessarily have more pages, and that increases your chance of being able to surface up. It's about having fewer, stronger pages that are actually really helpful to the user. And then once you have created this valuable content, your next step in eligibility, which is what we're covering here, is how to make your site eligible. What does AI deem as eligible? Is making sure that AI can easily understand and then summarize it. So how do you do that? First off, you're going to look for structure. This is what AI is going to look at. It's looking at how the page is built. And so that's what it's going to do to understand what the page is about. So you want things like clear headings, logical subheads, scannable sections that make it easy for AI to figure out the key points. Think about yourself as a human. If you go to take in information, you're going to look for the same things. You're going to want things clearly labeled, simple to get to, bolded words, headings. AI is the same way. Then once that structure is in place, that's when AI can say, yes, here's what this page is about. I trust this page. Let me show it to the user. And that is what's going to increase the chance of it being surfaced. So then once you put all of this together, focus, quality, structure, it leads to the one big takeaway for this point. AI visibility does not start with rankings or performance. Those days are gone. It starts with eligibility. If your site is not easy to crawl and understand and summarize, AI just won't prioritize it, no matter how strong the content is. So everything that we've covered up until now sort of ladders up to this main idea. And I'll pause right now, because if at any point you're sitting there and you're just kind of, your eyes are rolling back and you're getting overwhelmed, that's fine. That's probably normal. The most that I know about an H1 heading is from MySpace. So I completely get it. That's why we have things like experts and website builders, and there's partners like Local IQ that help to build AI pages so you don't have to. But it is helpful to know these things. That's why you're here today, to educate yourself so that you know what to look for in a good partner. So stay with me. We're going to have a fun time. Don't get overwhelmed. That brings us to our next section, site health and technical foundations. So because eligibility is only going to get you so far, you have to make sure that the technical basics are really solid. So let's talk about it. Remember our iceberg from earlier? So that's where we're going to dig in here. AI is not just looking at content. That's one part of it, but it's also looking at how reliably it can access and then move through the site. So if you look at the spectrum that's on the slide in front of you, every technical issue is just another thing that's continuing to push AI's confidence lower and lower and lower. So things like 404 errors, broken internal links, redirect chain, all of this introduces friction that's slowing down AI, and then ultimately it's weakening the trust in your site overall. So even these performance issues matter. Slow load times, signal unreliability, all of it goes together to where AI is not likely to prioritize or surface your content. So the key here is consistency, because there are always going to be technical issues. Maintaining a site is something that never stops. But if you have clean, predictable technical behavior, that will build confidence. And that confidence is what allows AI to keep coming back and using your content. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that later on, some specifics that you can do, and then help sort of focus it. Because like I said, the list is never ending of what you can do on a site. And reliability shows up most clearly in one place, site speed. Google consistently finds that if a site takes longer than about 3 seconds to load, most users leave. And if you think about that in terms of your own life, it probably tracks. I know I have very little patience for a slow website, and I'll move on pretty quickly. So that slow site behavior matters for AI. Slow pages signal friction and unreliability. And speed matters actually more on one device in particular, mobile. We're all on our phones probably more than we are on desktop, or we use them for different functions. So Google now evaluates your site primarily from a mobile perspective. That means that mobile is crawled and indexed first, then desktop. So if your mobile experience is slow or broken, or if it's missing content, AI and search engines see that as sort of the reality of your site, and then they're less likely to surface your content. So mobile performance is not optional. It hasn't been optional for a long time. It's a baseline for visibility. And again, this is where working with a partner that you can trust can be really important, because you're not just building a site for one screen, you're building it for multiple. And so you want to find a partner who understands that optimizing for mobile first is a non-negotiable. Then once you get that mobile performance solid, the next risk to sort of turn your attention to is AI confidence in broken paths. So you can see all those X's along the chart. Those represent a broken path on your site. So a broken page doesn't necessarily trigger a penalty. You don't get marks off, but it does break how value flows through the site. and your user's experience too. So when a link points to 404s or a redirect stacks up, those are where you're going to get broken pages. That's where your internal structure is getting fractured. So that means that signals like relevance and authority get diluted. And then AI really is just wasting time sort of navigating the dead ends. Imagine your little AI crawler and he's moving around as fast as he can or all around your site and he's working away, but then he hits a brick 404 wall. Then he's got to turn around and find another path. That's what's happening. Over time, this is the kind of stuff that's going to lower your site quality in the eyes of AI, not necessarily because the content is bad. They just can't even get to the content. The path is unreliable. And then sometimes, even when pages technically work, there might even be another issue that's quietly sort of undermining the clarity. And that is duplicate content. See, there's our little AI crawler. He's very confused. That's because he's working so hard because there is duplicate content that is typically unintentional. You don't know it's happening, but it creates a real confusion for AI. Things like what you see listed here often produce multiple versions of the same page. So when that happens, AI then has to work even harder. Our little AI bot is so tired to decide which versions really matter. And that extra friction, again, is going to reduce clarity and it wastes the crawl effort and it weakens your overall signals. So the goal is one clear version of each page. So AI knows exactly who to trust and where to prioritize. And then even when pages are unique and accessible, there's still the concept of trust because it can still erode if the content itself is not maintained. Like I said before, websites are definitely not a launch and forget it technique. It is something that requires constant work and maintenance. And so AI does not just evaluate pages individually, it's going to look at your site as a whole. So things like outdated stats or those broken links that we talked about, repetitive, redundant copy, low value pages. Those are all things that are sort of quietly in the background, dragging down your overall trust. And so that's why we call pruning. That's why it's so important for you to remove the updated and weak content to really help the stronger pages perform better. Think of it like maintaining a garden or a plant, which I'm terrible at. I'll kill every plant that I have. But let's say that you don't and you're gardening. We all know that cutting back what's no longer healthy, we're all going to be doing it when the spring comes and getting our yards together. That allows the rest of the site to grow really strong in the eyes of AI. And the challenge is that most sites don't fail because of one major issue. It is typically a compounding effect. Site health issues tend to stack quietly until you have this huge iceberg on your hands. So you get a broken internal link here, maybe you get some duplicate content there, an outdated stat that never got updated. Each issue on its own feels minor, but then you put them together and it just adds some significant friction and reduces the clarity for AI. So that's why visibility often sort of erodes gradually. It's not one big mistake, it's a bunch of really small ones that get unresolved. So get the basics under control on a consistent basis, and that's what's going to restore confidence and performance. So let's step back for a second and let's look at all of this together. What we can take away is that healthy sites remove friction, they build trust, and they give AI confidence. Those are like the three trifecta that we want with AI. That's the foundation that everything else relies on. And so you don't have to do that kind of stuff alone. There are tons of great tools and people and partners that you can turn to that, like I said, for our customers at Local IQ, we build and maintain their sites with them and with all of this in mind. We have people who live and breathe this stuff. So that's the technical groundwork for what we're going to talk about. Let's go ahead and shift for a second to the next section. Some of you are probably doing a sigh of relief. You're done with the technical stuff. I don't blame you. Content that AI can actually understand and use. So let's look at how structure pages that how to actually build that structure so that AI can extract and summarize and then ultimately surface up in the results for your potential customers. AI does not consume content the way that humans do. I compared it to a human earlier, like how you skim a page and you're trying to take it all in. While that part is true, how it actually processes the content is a little different. What it's trying to do is extract, which means it's pulling out meaning and signals. That's why the structure now matters probably more than the actual words on the page. Clear headings, scannable sections, this is what's going to outperform long narratives. Direct answers are prioritized over storytelling, and formatting directly affects whether the content is going to be surfaced. Again, think to your own search habits. I recently had a sick child, and I needed to really quickly Google, you can tell what I would go to, Google, what is the dosage and frequency of a certain medicine. I did not need a story about the medicine, or where it came from or its safety standards. I had already bought into all of that. I had a sick kid and I needed an answer really quickly. And AI grabbed the answer from a site that had the information very clearly labeled and easy to extract. So it's not about necessarily writing less, but it's more about writing in a way that AI can easily understand and then reuse. So to expand on that, AI filters content based on how completely it answers a question, not just that it answers the question at all. So as content quality increases, so does visibility. There's that term thin content again. It simply just doesn't make the cut when it's under scrutiny of AI. A short post can work for simple questions like my medicine dosage, but when a topic is a little more complex, that shallow coverage or that thin content, it really signals low value to AI. AI is going to prioritize depth, clarity, and usefulness because those pages are going to be easier to trust and then reuse in answers. And then this slide, it really takes us back to that structure that we talked about earlier. So we won't spend a lot of time here, but I do just want to re-emphasize the importance of headings and page layout as a way to help AI understand priority. And then the same goes for formatting. A wall of text with no clear headings, no bolding, divisions, relevant key points, that's not going to fare as well in the age of AI and GEO visibility. Depth is what helps content survive, but trust is what helps AI choose it. So you have to have the two together. So when you have multiple pages that are answering the same question, AI relies on those trust signals to decide which one to use. And this is what it does this using something called Google EAT or EEAT. This is how Google and AI judge whether content is credible, reliable, worth trusting and providing to a user. So experience shows real world knowledge. The expertise in your content is going to show subject matter depth. The authoritativeness reflects reputation, and then trust sort of ties it all together with accuracy and transparency. And these are the guidelines that Google gives to human reviewers to evaluate search results. They don't rank pages directly, but they do teach Google's systems and now AI what good looks like. So this guideline doesn't replace good content. What this does is it just amplifies it. It gives you a roadmap to help AI feel confident in citing and surfacing your pages. And then a really quick pulse check on any page of your content is to ask yourself this. If AI scanned this page for 5 seconds, would it understand it? Could it find the direct answer immediately, identify the main topic just from the headings, or pull out 2 or 3 clear takeaways? If the answer is yes, you're good to go. That page is set for AI visibility. But if not, it is probably likely getting filtered out no matter how good the writing is. And then that's when you want to go back and reevaluate some of the things that we talked about, like page layout and structure. The main takeaway here is that AI includes content it can quickly understand and reuse. So you want to make your content have a clear structure that earns that inclusion. Now that we know how to get visible, let's go ahead. We're going to turn for a second on how to turn that visibility into conversions. So this is when everybody sort of sits up. We all want people to see our sites, but the main goal is to turn them into customers. That's what we're all really here for. So let's look at moving from getting found to being chosen. Most pages do not fail because they lack information. It's probably the other hand where they overwhelm. There are probably too many goals, too many CTAs, and there's no clear next step. I think we've all probably fallen victim to that, where you want to give somebody as many options to click a CTA button as possible. You want to tell them what you do as many times as possible. But often the primary CTA, there's too many of them. There's not a clear next step. It's buried too far down the page, or maybe the value of clicking isn't even really obvious. So when users have to think way too hard about what to do next, they usually just do nothing. I talked about earlier, I have no patience when I'm searching the web. I'll bow out pretty quickly. And then your customers are probably doing the same thing. That's where conversions are breaking down. So what users see above the fold, which is an old newspaper term, which is really appropriate for us since we have a media business, what sits above the fold is what sets the tone for the entire page. That's the first thing that people see before they have to get scrolling. So in just a few seconds, someone is looking at your site and they're deciding three things. They're figuring out, is this for me? Do I understand the value? And what do I know to do next? And so if this message is not clear from the very beginning, users are going to just scroll aimlessly. We've all done it, or they just leave. They do both. So strong above the fold messaging removes that uncertainty and it makes the next action feel really obvious, especially in a mobile first world. What's happening above the fold is even more important because you've got limited screen space. So now you've done all this work on your site, you've got users there. Now, what else do you need to show them? When users are close to taking action, what really removes hesitation is trust signals. So you can see a few examples from our own site here on the screen. We feature a lot of reviews and testimonials because this provides social proof. It's the virtual word of mouth. Then you have credentials. That shows legitimacy. And local relevance, showing where other people are using your product or service, that means that buyers are in the right place. And so all these signals, they usually don't convince someone on their own. That's not going to make someone buy your product or service, but you put it all together and they really can shorten the decision time. And so the more trust that you establish up front, the faster a user is going to feel comfortable converting. Once that trust is established, the goal is not necessarily to push harder. I know it can feel like it. You want them to make the next step really quickly, but you want to make that next step easy as well. So high performing pages do not pressure users. They sort of gently guide them to the CTA and taking that action. They remove decision fatigue. So you're going to narrow down your choices and make the next step super obvious. So instead of like a really aggressive sales language, they're going to focus more on clarity and usefulness. It's about the outcome and the impact to the user. And this really aligns with how AI expects experiences to work. They want to see helpful, clear, and easy to navigate pages. And when pages guide instead of push, this is the result. AI can put you in front of the right audience, but it can't convert them for you. Once a user lands on the page, you're going to need clarity, trust, and that guidance to determine what they need to do next. So with visibility and conversion aligned, the final question is, what should you focus on next? This is that application piece. What I would advise and what we talk to our customers about is let's focus on just a few core pages. When AI is referencing or it's citing a site or a brand, it's usually pulling from just a small set of these pages. More often than not, it's your homepage, your primary product or service pages, and then an About Us page. These are the ones that are going to shape how AI understands who you are, what your business is, what you offer, whether you're credible. And that all is pointing people towards the eligibility that we've been talking about. It's pushing AI towards knowing that you're eligible. That's why these pages should be updated, expanded, tweaked way more frequently than anything else on your site. And so by narrowing it down, that helps you focus on just a handful of things really well versus feeling like you need to take on your entire site and do an overhaul. So now we're not to focus so much. One of the biggest traps that teams fall into that we see is they're trying to over optimize the wrong things. And we can all be very guilty of chasing every algorithm update out there, but that is rarely going to move your visibility forward. And plus, those happen so frequently, you're going to run yourself ragged trying to keep up with the latest Google algorithm update. And then publishing content without a clear purpose really just adds noise. So if you're just adding to the site because you think if you just add more quantity, that'll help you surface more, we learned earlier that's really just going to confuse our hardworking little AI bot. Even a full site rebuild is not necessary. We've talked about that. Just focus on those core pages. And AI visibility improves the most when you focus on clarity, usefulness, and then consistency on your core pages. Don't get stuck into this constant reinvention wheel. It's really just about the basics. The biggest gains are going to come from work that compounds over time. We talked about problems compounding over time. Well, you can do the same thing with your gains on your site. That starts with technical clarity. So, removing crawl errors, improving speed, reducing friction. Then, next is focused, helpful pages. That one page, one job with a clear intent and direct answers. And then finally, clear conversion paths. One primary CTA and then a strong above the fold guidance to reduce decision fatigue. It really can be that simple. These are not your quick wins though. This is what is going to be like your long game to get your site health up. And it's what's going to be you're consistently improving upon for AI visibility and performance. But take heart. Again, you do not have to reinvent the wheel or start from scratch. Staying visible does not require a whole new website. Again, pick your core pages, tweak the basics, build up that trust. Just a few strategic tweaks are what are going to get you started onto the right path. And because every business is different, some of this may not apply to your business. But in general, when customers are asking us where to start, this is where we tell them to focus. First, fix that site health and the technical blockers because nothing else is going to work if AI cannot reliably access that site. Next, you want to clarify your most important pages so your purpose is obvious. Pick your core pages. Then improve those pages that are already getting traffic. If you're seeing a bunch of traffic going to a certain page, that's where you're going to get the fastest return. And then finally, strengthen your conversion path so that visibility you earn actually turns into results. The whole name of the game is getting them to be a customer. So what we've shown today is that AI visibility isn't theoretical anymore. It is already shaping who gets traffic and who gets ignored. You're probably here today because you felt some of that pain. But most sites do not need a full rebuild. What they do have are hidden gaps that are quietly costing you visibility and revenue. The fastest way to uncover those is a focused assessment of your site and get an understanding of how this applies to your site specifically. So now we are about to move into the Q&A portion of our show. And as we do, you'll see a poll that pops up onto your screen in just a little bit. We want to offer you a free assessment for you to see exactly where you're not getting the traction on your site, but maybe even where your marketing is standing today. we can take a look at that and help you move that needle forward. And as that poll launches on your screen and stays up there, it'll remain there throughout the Q&A. So this is sort of where we move into the audio portion of our event. Our Q&As are a really great time to ask anything that we covered. I've seen some awesome questions coming through the chat. And so if you're ready to see how you need to start addressing your site and your marketing now, that's where you'll click yes on that poll, and then we can get you started on a free assessment. And then if you have questions, go ahead and throw them into the question box. Quick drink of water so I don't choke. Okay. Sorry, let's talk a little bit about the questions that we have. Let's see what we can go ahead and answer. So I see how long does it take to see results? So that really just depends on what you're addressing and what's getting resolved. I think for some of those easier issues, you're going to see something a lot faster, especially when it's on technical clarity and your core pages. Crawlability, structure, content, those can improve AI within, a few weeks. But the bigger gains that compound over time, this is where it's going to take a little bit longer. Great question. Apologies for that. Okay, so I have someone asking, I have multiple people asking if you need to create a lot of new content for AI. You do not. In most cases, no. You just need quality content that is structured well, that has a clear intent, and that AI is able to crawl and pull more effectively. AI tends to reference one, maybe two authoritative pages more than net new blog content. So optimization is often going to beat out volume. All right, let's see what else we've got. I love seeing all these questions. You guys are so engaged. I love that we've been able to talk about this today. So speak more about how AI redirects impact AI and answer engines to review your site. So I'll go back to my little AI bot working so hard, crawling through the site to try to find information. And so imagine that it hits a redirect that is broken, or a redirect that goes to a page that doesn't answer the question. AI is then distracted. It's wasting time and it can't find the answer quickly. So then it gives up. It's going to go back and it's going to find another site that does. So that's where you want to have redirects that are current. You don't want anything that's broken. You want to make sure that it is relevant, that it's redirecting to a page that answers the question and is relevant to the topic that the original page was on. Great questions. All right, keep them coming. All right. Okay, so this is something that I get a whole lot. Is this different from traditional SEO? So I would say that the fundamentals still matter. A lot of what makes SEO still is part of what makes AI effective in pulling from sites. But I would just say the emphasis has shifted. So the weight is a little bit differently distributed. So traditional SEO is going to focus really heavily on rankings. So AI visibility, however, is going to focus on whether that content can be understood, summarized, trusted. So SEO is going to give your site and your pages like an overall grade, and it's going to put you in order of all of your different classmates, let's say. Whereas AI is just going to pull the top student, and that's going to be it. So that's really the main difference. All right, let's see. We have so many questions. Good stuff. All right, what's the biggest mistake that you see teams making right now? There's a lot that our team sees, but I would say the biggest thing for AI and sites is honestly the biggest mistake that we see in a lot of marketing, where people are just trying to do everything at once. We talked about finding core pages. We had that fix first priority list. You don't necessarily need to do everything at once. I think you prioritize based on where your value is, and then you start sort of chipping away at that iceberg. It's the same thing with your marketing. There's a lot of different options. There's a lot of platforms and a lot of strategies, but really it's just what makes the most sense for your business and your goals right now. And then that doesn't mean that it can't grow and expand and change. It just means that you don't have to do everything right now, because what that's going to do is slow down progress. You're not going to be able to do all of the things well and effectively. And what you'll end up doing is sort of burning out and not seeing a lot of progress across the board. Find something that's your quick wins, get some wins, and then move on to the next thing. And then again, I'll just remind everybody that that poll is still up on the screen. If you would love someone to take an assessment of your site and let you know where you're ranking and AI visibility and just your marketing as a whole, we can have someone do that and talk to you there. I would love to continue answering questions. This is my favorite part, and we have so many good ones. If I did not get to your question today, we're coming up on time. Click yes to that poll, and one of our experts will be able to talk to you, and they'll be able to speak to you directly and specifically about your business and your goals and all of the variables that make your business tick. So I just want to say thank you again for joining us today. It has been a blast, and we'll be back again in a couple of weeks. Thank you.